こんにちは。テニスソールのお時間です。今回はフォアハンドトップスピンの習得法を紹介していきます。ショットが安定しない、ミスが多い、相手に簡単に打ち込まれてしまう、そんな悩みを解決するのがトップスピンです。トップスピンの最大のメリットはボールがコートにしっかり収まりやすくなることです。スピンがかかることで強く打ってもアウトしにくくなり、安定感が飛躍的にアップします。さらに高く弾むボールは相手にとって攻めにくく、試合を有利に進めることができます。ミスが多い、簡単に攻められてしまうという悩みをお持ちの方は必見です。海外の人気コーチたちの動画を参考にフォアハンドスピン習得方法を3種類紹介していきます。あなたのショットを次のレベルへ引き上げるトップスピンの習得方法、ぜひ最後までチェックしてください。
So these are progressions I'm going to lead you through here that you can do at home without a coach or a teacher or a ball machine or even a partner. So here's the first progression. Simply turn about 45 degrees or so to the side, grip the racket up at the very top of your handle, and then put your hand out right about even with the front of your front foot, and start with the tip of your racket pointing down, and then practice rotating the tip of the racket up. So tip of the racket down, tip of the racket up. And you'll see here from the side angle that my racket's not traveling forwards at all. It's only traveling vertically. It's only traveling upwards. Here you'll see I'm tracing a half circle with the tip of my racket. And when I drop the ball in a minute, my goal is going to be to make contact with the ball right about in the middle of that half circle. So here's the starting position, here's the finishing position. And so we're only moving the racket vertically, and I want contact to be right here. So after you shadow those a couple of times, get comfortable, go ahead, grab a couple balls, and just move this half circle back and forth, and then drop, and commit to just making this move, and not any forward movement at all. Did you hear that? So what we just heard was the strings moving against each other. There's kind of like a clicking sound. And that clicking sound is spin. That means the racket was actively traveling upwards as it made contact with the ball, and that moves the strings against each other, and then when they snap back, that's when we hear that click sound. And so you can watch the ball too, and you'll see it turning as it goes towards the other side, and you'll also see a curve or an arc to the shot. So spend, if you've always struggled with topspin, just spend half an hour here and just feel this. And if you've never been able to hit topspin before, this is gonna just feel like magical when you get it. So again, just commit to the vertical movement, no forward movement. And once you get really comfortable here, then we can move back to the service line. From back here, we're gonna make things a little bit more real life by just simply sliding the hand down to where you normally grip the racket now. And we're gonna set up in the same way, drop the tip of the racket down, circle the tip of the racket upwards in a half circle. So we just have a little bit more leverage now, a little bit more racket we're working with. And once you get comfortable and reacquainted with that move again, just go ahead and drop the ball, rotate the racket. And now with that extra leverage, the ball is gonna move a little bit more, have a little bit more spin and speed at all. Just focus on the vertical part of it. And so you'll notice the shape and the arc here. You'll hear the clicking. You want to listen for that at home. And you'll see the ball spinning towards the other side of the court as well. So tip down, drop, tip up, forward spin, clicking sound. And I'm seeing that shape. Once you get really comfortable with this, you can start with your racket up in whatever normal take back position you like to go to in your unit turn. And now practice integrating your unit turn with the same dropping of the tip of the racket and the same circular turn of the hand. So I'll do one more of these, tip down, tip up, and I'll go to my normal take back position, drop, go tip down, and tip up. So you hear that same clicking sound, you see the same shape, and that curve gives us safety. That safety allows us to swing hard and aggressive without making tons of errors. Once you get comfortable here, you can go back to the baseline.
What's happening, tennis fans? Thanks for tuning in. Today we are talking about what you should be doing if you really want to create this big, powerful topspin that we see on the tour. So all of these teachings are about creating the lag. All right, and the lag is meaning that your upper body, as you coil and the lower body pushes through the ground, the racket is going to lag as the upper body starts to uncoil. I think this is number one to really bring home before we get into anything else, is that when you are swinging out towards the ball, your upper body, so here you can see Adidas, the symbol on my chest, the Adidas symbol is going to be at a 45 and then start to work forward as I'm swinging out to contact, hence the lag. All right? An easy way to think about this is that if you picked up a really heavy axe with one hand and you were going to throw it, the weight of the axe would lag behind you before you could get the axe out of your hand. All right? But a lot of times the way this is taught, you've probably heard this, is to point the flashlight at the ball. Now the problem with this is if you're pointing the flashlight at the ball, one, you're putting your wrist typically in a pretty funky position. With an Eastern, it's a little bit easier as opposed to the Western grip that I play with. But from here, it's just not very dynamic. So what ends up happening a lot of times when we point the flashlight at the ball is that we tend to hinge like a door and everything moves together. And there, we don't get the lag. It's a nice way to kind of introduce, but it's not necessarily the right way to get you to feel it. And what we want to actually feel is the racket moving dynamically. So not from here to here. What we actually want to feel is this, right? The racket should be moving dynamically. And you can see here as the racket head is forward, as it starts to move back, as my hand brings the butt cap forward, it's going to move much more dynamically. That's also why we have issues with kind of the, pet the dog, if you will. Pet the dog is great, if you're first getting started or you're working with kids, but pet the dog, kind of the same thing here. When you're swinging this way, you see how like my elbow wants to lead forward and it forces the racket to move unnaturally. What you want to be focusing on is this movement, all right? So from here, allowing the wrist to operate loose and allow the palm to lead back forward. The other thing to think about is what the racket is actually doing on the forward swing. What we want to focus on is angular momentum, or angular momentum to the ball. As the racket comes around, what you'll see here is that the butt cap isn't actually pointed towards you. What it's actually doing is it's pointing more at this 45. All right, and from this 45, then it starts to play catch up to the ball. All right, this is number one. If you're going to create big spin and big power, you have to have this lag. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the legs because it's the power source for all this. So when you're setting up for your forehand, it's one thing to bend your knees, right? But loading energy through the ground is really what we're talking about when really trying to get a dynamic, powerful forehand. So whether you're open stance or closed stance, as you step out, you see my toes parallel to the baseline, always important on your stroke. You want to bend so that you're coiling your upper body and then you're coiling your lower body. All right. And from here, as you push through the ground, that same thing we were talking about with the hand moving this way, right? That nice dynamic whip-like movement. From here, if the hand stays loose and you uncoil your upper body, you'll enter that lag naturally. Okay. And then from here, the racket comes around more 45 and then it plays catch up. But it all starts in the legs. That's how we create the pace, right? The racket head speed, because that's, if you ask any coach, how do you create big power, big spin? It's racket head speed. Get the racket moving nice and loose, just as I demonstrated.
If you're new to tennis, here's how to create more consistency on your forehand with topspin. The first thing we want to do is we want to create racket speed. So use a C swing. A C swing, like the letter C, just means you take the racket back high initially, and then it drops down below contact, and then back up to the ball again. So don't think of tennis as straight back and then straight forward, but it's actually the letter C, where you go under the ball and then come back up again. I'll talk about that a little more in a second. Now, when your racket is dropping down in the back, it's important that you close your racket face, meaning tilt your strings down toward the ground. And the way you do that is just pay attention to your palm. Have your palm face the ground. When you're tilting the strings down prior to hitting the ball, that allows you, when you're down below the ball, to swing up to contact and to get your strings to face forward. When you hit the ball is going to go where your strings point. If your racket is wide open as you hit the ball is going to go over the fence. If your strings are facing down when you hit the ball is going to go in the net. You want a vertical racket at contact with your strings facing forward, and you easily do that with your racket face closed prior to hitting the ball. You want to be below the ball at this point so that then you can swing up as you strike the ball. You'll notice two things going on. My strings are facing forward, as I just mentioned, but my racket's not traveling forward. My racket is below contact and then above contact. So my racket is not traveling the direction I want to hit the ball. My racket is traveling the direction I want the ball to spin. And I'm pointing my strings the direction I want the ball to go. That is what produces topspin. So take the racket back high with both hands, go down below the ball, tilting your strings down toward the ground, spin up the back of the ball, and you'll get the topspin and control you're looking for. So use a C swing by taking the racket back high with both hands and circling down below the ball. Tilt your strings down toward the ground and then simply just swing low to high, spinning up the back of the ball as your strings face your target. You use this technique and there's no doubt.
本日はフォアハンドトップスピンの習得方法3種類を紹介しました。各コーチそれぞれ特色のある指導法であるため、自分に合う方法を選んでぜひ試してみてください。今後もこのようにテニス選手、コーチ、ファンに役立つ方法をどんどん発信していくので、ぜひチャンネル登録、高評価よろしくお願いいたします。